You'd think North Korea is the craziest and most dangerous dictatorship in the world, but only if you've never heard of Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is located just above Iran, beside Afghanistan, and below Russia and Uzbekistan. Nearly 1 million people, 1/6 of the entire country, live in Ashgabat, the country's largest city and perhaps the craziest capital in the whole world. Ashgabat looks like something out of a bad video game, because all the buildings are made of only two building materials, gold and white marble. Not only the buildings, but all the monuments, of which many in Ashgabat are made mostly of marble and gold. Everything else is also utterly magnificent. There are huge skyscrapers, impressive parks, giant palaces, and oversized gilded statues. But there is one thing you rarely see in Ashgabat: the people. The city's vast highways are almost always deserted, and even when Western tourists come to the capital, they rarely encounter people in public spaces. But where is everyone? It's odd to see the country's most populous city looking like a ghost town. The reality is that, unfortunately, many people are too afraid to go out and about because of Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov. What Kim Jong-un is to North Korea, Berdimuhamedov is to Turkmenistan. But strictly speaking, Kim Jong-un is still relatively harmless compared to Berdimuhamedov. It's worth noting that the leader of Turkmenistan is not just the country's president. His title is the leader of Turkmenistan and prophet of God on earth. And Berdimuhamedov also uses his divine power to an extent that no other governor has ever done. For example, he believes that black cars bring him bad luck, as he was once injured by the door of a black car. That's why he banned anyone from owning one. Within days, many residents realized that their black car was no longer at their door because Berdi had confiscated all black cars, and only if someone painted it white could they get it back. There are so many white cars in Turkmenistan now that you can even see them on satellite images. Even when the president of Turkmenistan once developed heart problems due to excessive smoking and very little exercise, he not only banned cigarettes throughout the country, but also built a ladder to the highest mountaintop in the country and forced all politicians to climb to the top on a health day. All this while, he was flying over the mountain in a helicopter and shouting at the politicians to run faster. But back to our question, where are all the people in Ashgabat now? And why is the city so strange? To get a better handle on it, let's go back to 1992. That was the year the Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia and other former Soviet states started becoming more democratic and free. Turkmenistan was also part of the Soviet Union by then and held its first free elections in 1992. President Sapamirat Niyazov announced that he had won with 98% of the total vote, but he was also the only candidate. This was because the former Soviet leader didn't want to give up his power, so he set impossible conditions for all other parties and rival candidates who couldn't take part in the election. Niyazov wanted total control and reorganized the state into a kind of private kingdom. He arrested all critics with the help of a secret police force, created a network of TV stations and newspapers that published only his views, and banned all information from abroad. What had previously seemed like a classic dictatorship took an even stranger turn in the 2000s. In 2001, he went from being a politician with a taste for power to an utterly megalomaniacal leader who saw himself as a god. And this was meant literally. Niyazov even wrote his own Bible, in which he saved the country from destruction with his supernatural power. Niyazov ordered that his book, called Runama, be read aloud in every church and even taught in schools. At one point, he even said that schools should only teach the contents of Runama, and that you could only pass your driving test if you could answer questions from it. If you got your driving license in Ashgabat, you had to drive 3 laps around the book, which was set up as a giant statue in the middle of a traffic island, to pass the test. As time went on, Niyazov's rules got crazier and crazier. Anyone who said even one bad word about the book was immediately arrested, and more everyday things were renamed after Niyazov and his family members. Bread was suddenly named Gurban Sultan, after Niyazov's mother, and January was named after Niyazov himself. People were never allowed to speak badly of Niyazov in public, and a picture of him had to be displayed in every room. Even in trains, cars, and airplane cabins, a large portrait of Niyazov had to be hung. But Niyazov wanted more than that. He wanted his divine greatness to be captured in the real world. This brings us back to the strange capital of Ashgabat. He wanted to create a kind of divine testimony to his infinite power, so he made sure the capital was reconstructed according to his wishes. Turkmenistan is a relatively poor country, but it has the fourth largest gas reserve in the world. The government has lots of natural gas, which could be used to improve living standards for the population. However, Niyazov decided to spend billions from the gas business on the planned redevelopment of Ashgabat instead. And so, he transformed almost the entire city into magnificent buildings of marble and gold, destroying not only valuable old buildings and churches, but also over 50,000 homes of the rather poor population. Most of the Turkmen living in these houses moved to the outskirts of the city, creating a huge slum with pretty dire living conditions. So, while the city is still adorned with countless valuable and impressive statues, monuments, and skyscrapers, it is also surrounded by a slum. When Niyazov almost became the victim of an assassination attempt, he became a bit of a control freak and banned almost everything. People were no longer allowed to celebrate weddings and funerals without his permission. They were also banned from gathering in public, and even schools, kindergartens, and hospitals were closed. Niyazov was constantly afraid that someone would plot against him. Living conditions during his last years were truly miserable for Turkmens. However, Niyazov finally died, and many in the country hoped that things could get better. And it's true that things did improve. Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, Niyazov's successor, who is still president of the country today, made some good changes at first. He improved the economy, opened up closed hospitals and schools, and even made it possible for citizens to have free health insurance. Things went so well for a short time under the new president that he started talking about a new Turkmenistan. But if you think that Turkmenistan was once a harsh dictatorship and has now changed for the better, you are wrong. Berdimuhamedov, who is often simply called Berdi, was also transformed into a ruler who saw himself as a god. He erected a golden statue of himself on horseback and a golden dog statue of his beloved four-legged friend. Berdi transformed the country into a true image of North Korea. Foreign journalists are no longer allowed to enter the country, and tourists are brought to Ashgabat only in small groups, where they are constantly monitored and never allowed to set foot outside the capital. Berdi also wanted to be treated like Kim Jong-un as a supernatural figure, and has forced everyone to hang a portrait of him in their homes. The president's favorite music has to be played regularly on the radio. He also repeatedly performed crazy stunts that were broadcast live on television. Among other things, he has driven a car around a burning crater and rode a horse over various obstacles. This brings us to the question of how ordinary Turkmen are living outside the capital. Life in Turkmenistan is relatively simple. Since most of the country is desert and steppe, there are a few settlements. Many people live as nomads in large tents called yurts. Most Turkmen work in agriculture, and even children are often forced to work long hours in the fields. As young as 15, children have to work hard in the fields every day. But daily life is not only about work. Turkmen's life also revolves around spending time with their families. Many wear old traditional clothes every day and prepare traditional Turkmen dishes to eat together in typical tents. There is something else that connects all Turkmen in their daily lives, dealing with the dictator and his regime. One particular theme runs through it all: total arbitrariness. There are no clear rules or laws. If you want to buy bread in Turkmenistan, you can do so on some days, but not on others. There is a law that says no man may grow a beard, but it is hardly ever enforced, and many men walk the streets with beards. Even walking your dog can be dangerous in Turkmenistan. Berdimuhamedov has been known to order dog owners to be thrown in jail indiscriminately. All these annoying rules, which are enforced at will and changed on a weekly basis, lead to a strange attitude to life in this isolated country. As a result, no one dares to enter the marble part of Ashgabat, and even in the poorer areas, Turkmen tend to live isolated in their homes. Only one person can do what he wants in Turkmenistan, and this is unlikely to change for a long time. Have you ever heard about Turkmenistan? What do you think of the country? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.